What do you do when the one person you've trusted your whole life becomes the one who changes everything? This is the story of a single night with my grandpa that turned my world upside down. A night that ended with an outcome I never expected: pregnancy. I know it sounds impossible, but it's the truth. I can't hide it anymore. I know it's hard to believe. You may even think I'm lying, but it happened, and it's something I need to share. The story. It's going to leave you shocked, but I promise it's real. Hi, I'm Isabella. I'm here to share a story that's been weighing on me for a long time. It's one of those moments in life that you never expect to happen, yet it changes everything. And I have to carry it with me every day. The shame, the guilt, and the secret. I can't escape it. All started with my grandpa Frank. He wasn't just my grandpa. He was the person who always had my back. The one who taught me about life, love, and how to be strong. He was the man I looked up to more than anyone in the world. We all shared so many moments, his laughter, his wisdom, the long talks on the porch. But one night, everything changed. Our relationship had always been innocent. Grandpa Frank wasn't just family. He was my safe place, my guide through life's storms. He taught me how to ride a bike, helped me with my homework, and always had the best advice. When I was struggling, he had this way of making me feel like I was the most important person in the world, and I cherished that. But then, something started to change. It wasn't sudden, it was subtle, almost unnoticeable at first. I began to catch him watching me in ways that felt different. His eyes lingered a little too long, and the way he spoke to me felt more personal, almost intimate. I told myself it was nothing, just me overthinking things. After all, this was Grandpa Frank, the man I trusted more than anyone. But as the days went on, those small moments started to pile up. Like the time we were sitting on the couch watching TV, and I felt his hand rest on mine for just a little too long, or the way he would compliment me not in the usual way about my achievements or how proud he was of me, but about how I looked. He told me I was beautiful more than once, in a way that made me feel uneasy. I started questioning myself. Was I imagining it? Was I making something out of nothing? But deep down, I couldn't ignore the shift. The warmth and safety I'd always felt around him were now clouded by something I couldn't fully understand. And with every interaction, the tension grew stronger, leaving me confused, scared, and unsure of what to do. That night, I was in my room, trying to escape the overwhelming confusion I'd been feeling for weeks. It was late, the house was quiet, and I thought I was completely alone. My mind was a whirlwind of emotions I didn't fully understand: curiosity, loneliness, and a strange desire I couldn't explain. I laid back on my bed, letting my thoughts drift as my hands began to wander. At first, it was innocent, a way to soothe myself, to find some kind of release from the tension building inside me. But as my mind wandered further, I found myself lost in the senses. My fingers traced over my skin, exploring places I'd never really paid attention to before. It was new, unfamiliar, and exciting in a way that made my heart race. I closed my eyes, letting myself sink deeper into the moment, completely unaware of anything else around me. I didn't hear the soft creak of the door or the faint shuffle of footsteps. I was too lost in what I was doing, too focused on the feelings that were consuming me. My breaths grew heavier and my body felt warm, almost electric. It was as if time had stopped and nothing else in the world existed except for that moment. But then everything shattered when I opened my eyes. I saw him, Grandpa Frank, standing in the doorway, his face frozen in shock. My stomach dropped and a wave of panic washed over me. I scrambled to pull the blanket over myself, my hand shaking as I tried to cover what he had already seen. My cheeks burned with humiliation, and my heart pounded so loudly I could barely think. "Please," I whispered, my voice barely audible, "please don't tell anyone." I couldn't meet his eyes. I felt so small, so exposed, like a child caught doing something forbidden. I wanted to disappear, to erase the moment entirely, but there was no undoing what had just happened. He didn't leave. Instead, he stepped into the room, closing the door behind him. His expression had changed. There was no anger, no judgment, just something I couldn't quite place. He sat down on the edge of my bed, his voice calm but firm. "If you want me to keep this between us," he said slowly, "there's something I need from you." At first, I didn't understand what he meant. My mind raced, trying to process his words. But when he reached out and touched my arm, the meaning became clear. My entire world tilted on its axis. This wasn't the Grandpa Frank I knew, the man who had always been my protector. In that moment, he was someone else entirely. A stranger asking something of me that I couldn't believe. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but sit there frozen in fear and disbelief. But I couldn't move. I was trapped, and I knew nothing would ever be the same again. I sat there trembling, my mind racing in a million directions. I couldn't believe what was happening, what he was asking of me. The man I had trusted my entire life, the one who had always been my protector, was now the one holding my deepest secret over my head. I felt trapped, like the walls were closing in on me and there was no way out. "Isabella," he said, his voice calm but with an edge of finality, "you don't want anyone to know about this, do you? Think about what would happen if your parents found out. If anyone found out, it would ruin everything for you, for me, for our family." His words were like daggers, each one cutting deeper into my already fragile state. I couldn't breathe. I couldn't think. All I could feel was the weight of his presence and the unbearable shame of what he had seen. I clutched the blanket tighter around me, my hands trembling. Tears streamed down my face as I shook my head. "No, please, I don't want anyone to know. Please, Grandpa, I'll do anything, just don't tell anyone." My voice was barely a whisper, choked with desperation and fear. I felt like a child again, powerless and begging for mercy from the one person I thought would always protect me. He leaned in closer, his face unreadable, his tone steady. "There's only one way to make sure this stays between us," he said. "You have to prove to me that you trust me, that you could do what it takes to keep this a secret." I stared at him, my mind reeling. I didn't understand what he meant at first, but then his hand brushed against my arm and I froze. The realization hit me like a tidal wave, and I felt like the ground had been ripped out from under me. "No," I whispered, shaking my head. "No, I can't, I don't." But the words wouldn't come. I was too scared, too overwhelmed to say anything more. He didn't move, didn't seem, back away. Instead, he sat there, waiting, his eyes locked on mine. The silence was suffocating, and I felt like I was drowning in it. "Isabella," he said again, his voice soft but firm, "you don't have a choice. If anyone finds out about this, it will destroy everything. Do you understand that this is the only way to make sure no one ever knows?" His words were like a cage, trapping me in a reality I couldn't escape. I wanted to scream, to run, to do anything but sit there and listen, but I couldn't move. I was paralyzed by fear, by shame, by the weight of his words. I looked down at my hands, my fingers clutching the blanket so tightly they had turned white. My whole body was trembling, and my chest felt like it was going to explode. I couldn't look at him, I couldn't say anything, but I knew what he was asking of me, and I knew that if I didn't agree, everything would fall apart. "Okay?" I whispered, my voice barely audible. The word felt foreign, like it didn't belong to me, but I said it anyway. "Okay, I'll do it." The moment the words left my lips, I felt a wave of guilt and regret crash over me. But it was too late. The decision had been made and there was no going back. He nodded, his expression unreadable, and stood up. "Good," he said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. I sat there staring at the floor, unable to process what had just happened. I felt like I had betrayed myself, like I had given up a part of who I was just to keep the secret. But what choice did I have in that moment? I felt like there was no other way. I stayed there for what felt like hours, my mind replaying the moment over and over again. The shame, the guilt, the fear. It was all consuming. I knew that what had happened would haunt me forever, but at the time I thought I had no other option. I thought I was doing what I had to do to protect myself, to protect my family. I didn't realize how much it would cost me. The days that followed felt like a blur. I kept telling myself that I could move past it, that I could bury the memory so deep it would never resurface. But something inside me felt different. At first I thought it was just stress, the weight of the secret eating away at me. But then the signs became impossible to ignore. I started feeling nauseous all the time, waking up in the middle of the night with a strange heaviness in my stomach. My body felt foreign to me, like it wasn't my own anymore. I brushed it off, convincing myself it was just nerves. But deep down, I knew something was wrong. One afternoon, I stood in the bathroom staring at the pregnancy test, and my fingers trembled as I opened the box. my heart racing so fast it felt like it might stop. I told myself it was just to put my mind at ease, that there was no way it could be true. But as I waited for the result, I felt the fear creeping in, wrapping itself around me like a suffocating blanket. When the lines appeared, I froze. My breath caught in my throat and the world seemed to stop. 2 lines, positive. I stared at it, willing it to change, hoping I had read it wrong. But no matter how many times I looked, the result was the same. I was pregnant. My legs gave out and I sank to the floor, the test still clutched in my hand. Tears streamed down my face as the reality of what this meant hit me like a tidal wave. How could this have happened? How could I have let it happen? The questions swirled in my mind, each one heavier than the last. I felt like I was drowning in guilt, in shame, in fear. I wanted to scream, to cry, to do anything to make it go away, but there was no escaping it. The truth was staring me in the face, and there was no way to undo what had been done. I thought about my family, about what they would say if they found out. I thought about him, about the promise we had made to keep it a secret, and now this. This was something I couldn't hide. I felt so alone, so completely lost. I had no one to turn to, no one to confide in. The weight of the secret was crushing me, and now with the pregnancy, it felt like the walls were closing in. I didn't know what to do or where to go. All I knew was that my life would never be the same again. How do you carry a secret like that? How do you go on knowing that your life is never going to be the same again? I woke up every day with a pit in my stomach, the weight of the truth pressing down on me, suffocating me. The hardest part was knowing that I could never tell anyone. I couldn't tell my parents, my friends, or anyone who might help me make sense of what had happened. I couldn't tell them that the man who had always been my protector, my grandpa, was the one who had changed my life forever. What was I supposed to say? How could I even begin to explain something so wrong? How could I tell them that I was carrying their own grandchild? The thought of it made me sick to my stomach. I couldn't even look at the pregnancy test without feeling like I was betraying everything I had ever known. I kept thinking about what my parents would say if they knew. What would my mom think? How would she react if she knew that her own father had done this to me? The guilt was unbearable. I couldn't bear the thought of disappointing them, of destroying the family we had built. I thought about the life inside me, and the weight of that decision felt like 1,000 pounds. What would I do with this baby? How could I keep it knowing how it came to be? How could I raise it knowing it was a reminder of the darkest moment of my life? But the truth was, I didn't know what to do. I couldn't go to a doctor. I couldn't talk to anyone about it. I was trapped in my own body, in my own shame. Every day, the reality of what had happened kept sinking in deeper. The pregnancy wasn't just a physical change. It was a constant reminder of my own failure, my own betrayal, and every time I looked in the mirror, I saw someone who was no longer the girl I used to be. I thought about abortion, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I couldn't erase what had happened, no matter how much I wanted to. It felt like I was stuck between 2 impossible choices: keep the child and face the consequences, or end it and live with the guilt of that decision for the rest of my life. I didn't know what the right answer was. I didn't know if there even was a right answer. Every time I saw my grandpa, I felt a rush of emotions. I was terrified of him, of what he had done, but I was also terrified of what would happen if anyone found out. He looked at me like nothing had changed, like everything was normal. But I knew it wasn't, and the guilt we both carried was eating away at us silently, every single day. I had no one to talk to. I couldn't tell my parents, I couldn't tell my friends, and I couldn't talk to him. We had both made a PCT, a promise to keep the secret, and now we were both living with the consequences of that night. And as the days went on, I realized that no matter what choice I made, I would never be able to escape the aftermath of that one moment. The pregnancy, the guilt, the shame, it all weighed on me like a heavy burden, and I didn't know how much longer I could keep pretending that everything was fine. I couldn't go on like this, but I didn't know how to stop. I was trapped in a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I know this is a lot to process, but it's my truth, and I'm sharing it because I know there are others out there who might be facing something similar. If you've ever carried a secret, something that weighs on you and changes everything, I want to hear from you. What would you have done in my shoes? How would you have handled it? Leave your thoughts in the comments below and let's talk about it. This is a space for us to connect and support each other. And if you want to hear more stories like mine, If you want to know what happens next and what other twists life can throw at us, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. You won't want to miss what's coming. I'll be